All right, everybody. We are back. Welcome to This Pink Cloud. This Pink Cloud is a show all about multiple pathways to recovery, mental health, all of that kind of good stuff. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure and subscribe. Be sure and
subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to the channel.
Hey, just be sure and subscribe. We think it's pretty cool.
But we're streaming on all major platforms. Be sure and subscribe, like, share. Is that what they say?
Smash that like button, brother.
There we go.
If you want to live.
And exactly. Speaking of living,
Yeah, man.
he's over there living his best life. Everybody, give it up for Chad LeMans.
Yeah, man. There we go. Instead of the sad trombone, I give myself an air horn.
You get the air horn today.
Yeah, man.
Hey, so I'm excited to have this guy on today. We actually met him at the big Texas rally for recovery just a couple weeks back, and we did a little on-the-spot interview, but then I was like, oh, this guy I need to actually have on the show in a proper setting because you are actually, well, his name is Mark F., we're going to keep it at that. And he is it says field surveillance, Dallas County Divert Court. But so we are excited, and you work in the probation system. But we'll get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Mark F. How are you, buddy?
I'm good.
All right.
And if I understand the mission correctly, you want me to talk a little bit about sort of how I tangled up into this and then kind of what happened. And
Yeah,
then,
well,
I want to spend the bulk of the time on the ways in which I found to help a lot of baby drunks and dope fiends find their way out.
Right. Yeah. No.
That's
absolutely.
the important stuff.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, just why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory, and share what you want, but just so people, know where you're coming from.
Yeah. I always kind of smile at that point because I grew up in the middle of East Africa with a tribe of Iron Age cattle herders that drank blood every morning and practiced ritual murder. Doesn't everybody? What that did do was give me a really wide range for what constitutes acceptable behavior. It's kind of hard after that to get very excited about much of what anybody
Holy shit,
does.
are you being serious? You're serious?
This is my life, bro.
Whoa, dude.
Rigorous honesty, right?
Well, so how? So you were born into this situation?
Mom and Dad were both missionaries. Now, the really important piece of that is my mother's father died of alcoholism 19 years before I was born, and about 3 heartbreaking years before Alcoholics Anonymous was founded.
Okay.
So, he just never had a chance.
Yep.
Sure.
And so he died of a wet brain in a state hospital. And if I have nothing else to be grateful for on any given day, I can get real grateful just like that. Because that would have been my life, man.
Right.
I'm a very firm believer after 35 years of doing this that, you're either a member of the 1 in 10 club or you're not. By and large, it's genetically loaded. Doesn't mean you're going to roll the dice that way, but in my experience, over and over and over again, I thought I was the exception, actually, until when I was 40 years old and 7 years sober. Okay, my mother finally comes up with the story of her father. I didn't even know his name.
Right.
Okay. And when I asked her to tell me something about him, she gave the most perfect soup to nuts adult child of alcoholics story I've ever heard. Yeah, including all the inappropriate smiles at the different places.
Right.
And I realized, the first thing I realized was that my higher power was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, and was just shoving stuff. I could feel it way down deep, just these pieces going click, click, click into place. And it was like, wow. That's amazing. And all I had to do, was just keep showing up. But that helped a lot in terms of understanding what was going on in a lot of different ways. That plays out further.
Well, knowing that you were genetically predisposed as well, so to speak.
I say loaded because and that continued. My son wound up with the same thing. He's in the program and been sober now about 15 years. So it's like all good. I am blessed beyond any possible thing I deserved. I just don't. you know. And so most of my days are spent with just a boatload of gratitude. I bring all that up because some of the net out of that was that my folks really, you know, they didn't know how really to raise kids. The joke I tell sometimes is, you know, they decided to go to Africa to share God with the Africans and raise 5 kids where there weren't any witnesses
Right.
about how that was going to happen. And when you have that model, what happens is, at least for me, and I think for the others, was you wind up at some level just being enraged at mom and dad. Now you can't get that angry at mom and dad, especially in the middle of the East African bush. So what you do is you get mad at God. And that was the trade-off.
Right.
And now because, follow the dots, because you're a missionary kid, you can't talk about that with anyone.
Yep.
So you shove it way down there, and that just sat there. And that was like a little hot lead softball. Sat right down here, kind of pressed once in a while. A little quiet voice in my head said, Mark, you're no damn good.
Right.
Nothing personal, man. Just you're not.
Right.
Now, I did everything I knew to fight that voice, you know. By the time I had gotten to high school, I was on an all-schools rugby team. I was copy editor of the yearbook. I was on the student council, blah, blah. But I did everything I could think of.
Well, at what point did you move back to the States then?
Every 5 years, we'd come back for 1 year of furlough. It was like coming to Mars.
Gotcha.
I mean, I would just kind of hold my breath, get through it. You know.
Okay.
I mean, you guys were really weird. Everybody was white. Everyone spoke English.
Right.
The
No cow's blood.
Electricity was on all the time.
Right. You have plumbing.
You know,
Right.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Gravity feeds
Right.
and stuff. Yeah. So it was a very different world. I was listening to him talking, and the other Gen Xers. I was laughing to myself. I thought, yeah, their next guest is actually from the 19th century, because I grew up literally reading by kerosene lantern in the attic.
Right.
Know, so that throws it way back a ways.
Right. Well, we love to support everybody and every age bracket and level of experience is important.
I say all that because it's really important to me to say out loud, none of that fundamentally makes much difference. I think if my parents had never gone to Africa, if I didn't have that whole weird backstory, I think that I would still have wound up an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing that I try and keep in mind. It was not, but trust me, there were some very interesting things that went down between age 1 and 17. That the only thing that really helped me, I think, with my alcoholism was I had absolutely zero illusions about the fact that people die and I was going to be one of them. And that meant down the road that helped, because it kept me out of some stuff. Initially at times, and when we got right to the end, it was like, yeah, okay, what do you want to do? So I go to college, and I go to my first dorm party, tiny dorm party, one 6-pack, 4 people.
Right.
Can't get much smaller than that.
Yeah.
I arrived late because the woman in my life was not acting like she should. A theme that would repeat itself. And somebody put a Schlitz malt liquor in my hand. I drank it down, and a miracle happened.
Right.
The voice in my head
went away.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That voice had never shut up.
Uh-huh.
That little hot lead softball here.
Right.
I said to myself, "Self, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
This shit works. Absolutely works."
Right.
So there was 1 6-pack and 4 people, and I wound up with 3 of the beers.
Right.
Of course I did.
Yeah.
The other people were under the impression this was a social occasion. From jump, it wasn't like that for me at all. It was medicine. When I talk to people today, I speak Swahili really well. I speak English well, and I speak drunk pretty well too.
Right.
And I'm fluent in addict, but not
Right.
not as. And when I'm trying to get someone's attention, I'll tell them, look, you don't have an alcohol or drug problem. Well, in my position, they've been waiting a long time for someone in authority to tell them that.
Right.
So it's like, yeah. And I say, yeah, you don't. And you never will. What you have is a solution.
Right.
When we're with each other, just with each other. That's the first secret. We don't spend any time at all talking about how bad, the treatment people do, but they don't, we know it works. That's why we're using it. We're not filthy, evil, wicked, nasty, or dumb. We're doing it because it works. And it works well, except for a number of unfortunate side effects, jails, institutions, and death. Oh, my.
Right.
But it keeps us going, And so that's the first secret. The second secret is, unless I find something else that works as well, and it has to really work. It can't be imposed from the outside. No treatment system, no court system, nothing like that will actually make it happen. You can sort of get folks close to it. You can nudge them into it. You can, dunk them in the pool for a minute and see how they can get a feel for what that's like. But the real truth is, every last bit of this is obedience to the unenforceable. You cannot make it happen. You can let it happen. You can set situations up where it's more likely to happen than not. But the decision absolutely has to be made by the person themselves. So
I always say that you cannot force somebody to want sobriety.
Right.
I always say that, and I think that's kind of what you're saying.
And that if I really want a different way of life, because this one's become incredibly painful, which it does, then I've got to have something that will absolutely replace it down to my core. In other words, it can't be me saying something to make someone else happy. If that's all that's going on, it ain't going to fly.
Right.
So what has to happen is that they have to make that decision. It's one of the reasons I think that that it's so important that the words of the 12 steps, and I think the words of almost any other organization out there, never starts with I. It always starts with we. I get drunk every time. We stay sober. That's how that works, and that's how it'll always work. I do not want to ever get very far from my tribe. There's an old African proverb: you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
Right.
And
that's good. I'm stealing.
I like that. Yeah.
I stole it. Why shouldn't
Right.
you? Trust me, all of this.
Right.
Was
it's all plagiarized.
carefully culled and curated and stolen from somebody else before it ever got to me.
Sure.
So let me go fast forward. If you hate God, you don't know you hate God. One of the places you're likely to wind up is seminary. If you can't have a relationship with him, let's go ahead and get a degree in him. Maybe it'll help.
Let's get a job. Let's get a job with him.
It doesn't.
Right.
But I was also trying to get my father to say I love you, and I was trying to get and sort of stay in the family trade, all that stuff mixed up with it.
Sure.
And so I went to seminary, eventually graduated, and came south to Texas. I climbed Kilimanjaro before I left, froze my feet, so I was all for getting south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Oh, okay.
As quick as I could.
Yeah.
When I got here, I was an ordained pastor with a small parish, and for the first time since I'd started drinking, I had a little extra spending money. So now I could drink not like I wanted to, but I could give it a pretty decent
You could step
shot.
it up a little bit.
Yeah. and that led within about 3 years to a bishop I confessed my sins to my wife. She confessed my sins to the bishop, and he made a 462-mile plane ride so he could confess to me that not only was I out of a job, I was out of a career.
Right.
So, boom, nosedive, bouncing around, just doing whatever. I was a maintenance man for an office complex for a while, cleaning up stuff, trying to make things, but inside not really, not at any kind of peace, not really wanting to look, just that numb place we get, and we're not even trying to win anymore. We're just trying not to lose. We're trying to get to numb. If I get to numb today, I won.
Right.
And so I get there, and
I like how you said get there. Because
it's a journey, man. We don't start out there in the morning.
Right.
We know we don't. No, we don't.
We were always just trying to get there. Yeah.
And so I embarrassed myself one day. it's hard to screw up being a cleanup guy in an office complex parking lot, but I managed, and I thought I can't do this anymore, and I thought, well, you got a master's degree in God, and a lot of problems. What you probably should do is go and become a chaplain at Parkland, and that was because I don't know if you noticed when in your own passage, as you're going down the dark, but the feelings start leaving.
Right.
And at the bottom, you're kind of left with two. One of them is terror, and the other one's rage. At least that was my story. And so I thought, okay. And so I went to Parkland because if you wait till about 10:30 at night, let the gun and knife show get a good running start. The two feelings that are going to be bouncing off those tile walls down there are terror and rage. So I had a lot of people that thought I was making this long journey, to the edge of what it meant to be human. They didn't understand. I just lived there.
Right.
So fast forward to the very end. I'm living in Houston. I'm living with a pastor who is also a drug dealer, which is an interesting combination of professions.
Sure. Now, are you?
He's a cottage dealer.
Well, no. When you say this, like pastor, and I heard you say bishop. So were you involved in the Catholic Church?
Lutheran.
Okay.
Catholic light. Think
Gotcha.
Catholic light.
Yeah. No.
And so I was working with at MD Anderson, supervisor at MD Anderson is where I'd wound up.
Sure.
And I would get up in the morning. I would come to in the morning in the shower. And I'd get out of the shower because that seemed like a good idea. I'd cross the hall to my room. I had a room I was running from him. And I would put on my black clergy shirt and black pants and black boots, and then go out there and get in my car that hadn't had the oil changed in 3 years, and I'd drive on down to the hospital, and where I was supervising folks who were trying to help these folks. What happened, and this was just the grace of God, I was assigned to the bone marrow transplant floor, and the bone marrow transplant floor is the place where, if it works, you got a nice long life ahead of you, and if it doesn't, you got a very short life ahead of you.
Right.
Kind of like our thing.
Yeah. Sure.
And so we didn't lose anybody for like 6 months, and then we caught the odds up in about 6 weeks. And I can't cry, and I can't talk to God. The whole time I was a pastor, man, I could have you in the room. You'd be crying, hugging my neck, talking about how grateful you were that you'd connected and gotten through to the grief part and all that stuff. And you go home happy, and I go home get drunk because I was right in the goddamn room.
Right.
And I couldn't get it.
Sure.
And so that's all part of the mix. So this particular night after the sixth person died, and I'd been pastoral with everybody else, I came home and I just tipped up a fist and emptied it out. Toward the end, what I did was about a half gallon of vodka would usually last about 2.5, 3 days. And it was interesting stuff. You didn't want to rub your thumb across the label because it would smear. The year it was made was April. And I had 3 different liquor stores where I would pick it up because I didn't want anyone to know I was alcoholic.
Well, no, that is exactly my story.
Never dawned on me until I was 5 years sober that every single time I walked into one of those stores and started my rap about, I should look around here. And so the guy wouldn't say a word. He'd just reach back and grab that half gallon of cheap vodka.
He already knew it. Yeah. When you start talking like shop and like, oh, how's your dog? How's your family with everybody there? Then it's like, oh, maybe there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wound up that night. I came home and I just emptied the fist. And when I did, and when I came to again, I'd put 10 records on this record player, and they were on the last one, and it was Ry Cooder. Or no, it was somebody doing a Ry Cooder song. That was
Okay.
it. And it was, I got Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. And I made another drink, and I started laughing, and then I put the drink down, and I just started taking out the wall.
Yeah.
Because I'd finally got there. And so I took out the wall for a while. And
When you
then
say taking out the wall, what do you mean?
with my hands.
Oh, okay.
Just blowing holes
right.
in it.
Gotcha.
The only thing that stopped that was I realized I didn't want to keep, I thought, you're going to keep doing this. Go outside.
Right.
And that woke me up quicker. Because you start beating bricks, you're going to break your hands.
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
quick. Got in the car. I'm riding around doing evasive maneuvers in my head. We are now well into La La Land, right? Because I was now avoiding the angel of death. And it occurred to me that if I could find a woman and sleep with her, that the angel of death, would go away. And one reason they're never making a statue out of me is my last drink was 3 fingers of warm scotch along a bed I did not belong in for moral, aesthetic, or any other reason that today I understand. Came home, and my friend, and he was the last guy on earth who knew the real book on me. And my friend got there, and he had piled everything I owned in the middle of the room to share how he felt about that hole in his wall.
Right.
I went in and slapped him awake so I could explain to him how I felt.
Right.
So we get in the hall, we start sharing our feelings with each other. I'm an old rugby player and wrestler. He's an old roller derby professional and stuntman.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, it was real dramatic there for about 45 seconds, I think. It was, nobody had any oxygen because we'd all been smoking way too long. And so we stop, and I'm trying to remember which one's the bad knee so I can kick it out and we can go to bed.
Right.
And he looks at me, and he says, come on, brother, we'll fix it. Now, that whole night before, that last moment, he wouldn't call me brother because that's what we called each other. And when he did that, I started to cry. And I just kept crying. Couldn't stop. And I cried for 24 hours. Bawled, wept, sobbed, just kept pouring out. I thought I'd gone nuts. That was actually starting to go healthy, I think.
Right.
I picked up the phone and I looked up the local AA group, and they said, oh, yeah, it's simple. You go down here and there's a stop sign. You turn left. There's another stop sign. Go up here and then go around this horseshoe. There'll be another stop sign. Cross over. There's a light there. Hang a right and go across the railroad tracks. There's another left turn, and you turn on that left, and we're on the right about a quarter mile. I said, thank you very much, and hung up. Now, before I made that phone call, I'd gone through the first 24 hours of detox, which meant that I had a little imaginary guy with me, quick little fella. I move, he moved.
Right.
Wouldn't come close, wouldn't go away, wouldn't talk. And I know today that guy's called DTs, and the only thing after that is electric convulsions and death. So that's about as close as I wanted to get. But managed to make most of the ride. When I pulled into me and my imaginary friend pulled into the little Irish fedora cap on,
Right.
Cute little fella. When we pulled into the place, I looked at him, and there was a guy sitting in the chair guarding the door, at the door. His name was Joe. He was an ex-thief. And Joe looked at me, and I looked in Joe's eyes, and I realized that Joe had what I wanted. So I started trying to impress him with my master's degree in God. And Joe just put his head down. I know today he just didn't want to laugh in my face. And he was just waiting for me to breathe because he had to get a word in. And when I finally stopped my dog and pony show, he said, he said, that's good. He said, that's good. That's excellent, actually. We take those too. Come on in. And that was my first awareness that I didn't matter. It just did not matter what my thing was. So I come in on the 4th day of November, 1981, and I haven't had a drink since.
Right.
Now, I think the reason for that is that I was truly desperate. And so that meant that I did what they told me to do. I didn't look left. I didn't look right. I was also very arrogant. So it was like I got to the wall, and I looked up, and I see on the wall the steps, and I go, okay. this shit is not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm doing
I am
that one.
much too sensitive, complex, and intelligent individual for this cornpone crap to ever fly. You know?
No, I'm going to do this one, but not that one.
No, I didn't get that far. That would have been better. I'd have been ahead if I'd done that. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to do what they tell me, and when it doesn't work, I'm going to look them in the eye and say, hey, I did your deal. It didn't work. I'm out of here. Bye.
Right.
Okay? And that was how it was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I moved back to Dallas because I had a wife in Dallas at the time. And I started going to the Oak Cliff group, which is at that time was a great group.
Sure.
When you walk in, they say you got a weapon on you, and they say no. They say hold on a second, we'll get you one. It was pretty tough. Yeah, it was rough stuff.
Yeah.
But I went there every single day, and that was all I had. I never did get the treatment. I just went every day.
Right.
And they said get a sponsor. And there was a guy there who was kind of old and had a lot of white on his muzzle, and I figured I could slide some shit past this guy. And so I asked him, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "I'll be your sponsor. Here's how it's going to go." He took me. He said, "There's really only one thing you're going to have to understand. One, there is a God, and two, you're not him. And that's really the ball game.
Sure.
We're gonna do these steps. Every time you call, we're gonna talk about the steps. That's all we're gonna talk about. You're gonna go home tonight and you get down on your knees and you're gonna ask for sobriety." And I said, "Bill, I'm a clergyman." He said, "I know. That's why I'm giving you such precise instructions on how to pray." Now I don't know how that old guy knew that I had never been on my knees when it was my choice. For liturgy, sure.
Yeah.
But just me and him, opposite sides of the street, not paying attention.
Right.
Okay? I went home and I said, okay, I'm down here because my sponsor says I have to be. I'm asking for another day's sobriety because that's what he told me to ask for. Let's not kid each other that this means I like you or you like me. Amen.
Right.
I love that prayer.
Right.
It was, it ain't St. Francis, that's for sure. But it was real. And that's the one thing it has to be. Start where you are. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Just start where you are. Start in talking. If you gotta start everyone with "fuck you, God," okay.
Yeah.
But start. And keep going. So I come back and he sent me home the next time to do the third step prayer. And I did the third step prayer on my knees. I came back. He said, "You really do that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You mean it?" I said, "Best I could." He said, "Fine. Now we're going to read from the book." And he said, "Though our decision was a vital and important step, it would have little permanent significance unless at once followed by a vigorous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been troubling us." So we got down to...
AKA the fourth step.
Yeah. And so within a very short period of time, I was doing the fourth step. I did something that was really... I just fell into it. That was really lucky. I learned to set a timer. And for 15 minutes a day, I would write on my resentments, and then that was it. The bell rang. I go, thank God that's over with, and run. And the only thing that kept me going was when I'd come into the meetings, and I'd be like all wrapped around the axle about something in my past, and I'd be like blown. They could look in my eyes and see. You ever notice that when we're the only group of people I know that when we say "How are you" in a meeting, we look in your eyes.
Yeah.
We really want to know.
Yeah.
Almost nobody else wants to know. We want to know.
Hey, real quick, I want to throw to our sponsor, which is Max the Axe, which is Lone Star Injury Attorneys. If you go to thispinklawyer.com, that will actually take you to the Lone Star Injury Attorney website, and you can shoot him an email from there, and he will get back to you. He practices personal injury law in Texas and California, so hit him up for the maximum results to your personal injury needs. And then also, we've got some new music out, which Chadwick is going to be so kind as to play for us.
Yep.
All right, and we are back. So those are 2 new tracks we have out on Lone Star Records. If you go on the Spotify or Apple Music, they're streaming there, and I think they're pretty cool.
I think it's pretty cool.
Anyway, but and you can also buy them for download on Beatport if you want.
Yep.
Yeah. Other than that, and are you mesmerized by the video I made?
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
It's
Seems
pretty
like, Seems like you know a little bit about that.
Hey, what do you know about that?
Is that right?
Anyway, so back to your compelling story, Mr. Mark F. We are at, well, I know we want to get to, actually what you do for a vocation
Let's
currently.
just jump right there because
Okay.
the reality is I got a get sober job. I did it off and on for about 5 years. I went back to the church and then finally left because there was such a disparity in spiritual strength between the rooms, and it was like a night light and a 100-watt bulb, and it was like, okay, I can't tolerate this.
Right.
Yeah.
I go. I am looking for some place where I can be of some use. That was really all I wanted.
Sure.
And there's a book out called, I think they still do it, called What Color Is My Parachute? It's a great way if you want to figure out, where do I go next?
Mm-hmm.
And you just do the exercises, and I come out, and it's like you'd be good as a probation officer. And I fell out of the chair.
Wow.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because it was like I had almost no contact. Aside from the 5 officers holding my driver's license when I was drunk driving.
Right.
That was about the extent of my
experience. Right. Yeah.
With the criminal justice system. So I thought to myself, I went, well, you did you did all this. You told the truth. By then I'd learned don't play games with it, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it came out. You better go at least fill out an application. So I did.
Mm-hmm.
It took them a year to give me an interview. And I think that was because it spooked the hell out of them, because on the front page, recovering alcoholic.
Right.
And they were like, oh, shit.
Yeah, we better make sure that he's got some time under his belt.
So I kept getting promoted on my sober job, and I think that's what finally did it, was they were like, okay, how bad can he be if he's running a $2 million store downtown?
Right.
It's like, he probably knows something.
Right.
So they invite me in for an interview, and then once I got in, they were like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, we can use you.
Mm-hmm.
And my story with them, because I've always believed there's 2 people that have an absolute right to know that you're in recovery. One is your doctor and one is your employer. Because if you have to suddenly take off on a 12-step call, now is not the time to start explaining all that.
Yeah.
And like I told all of them, I said, look, here's the truth. If that's a deal breaker, great. I can find another job. I promise you I can find another job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I can find another recovery.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the interview, they said, yeah, you can play. And then what happened from there was I basically got assigned to every new endeavor the county did from then on.
Yeah.
So we had a deal for a while.
And what year was this?
88.
Okay, so 88 is when you got involved with the...
No, 86 was when I got involved with the probation department.
Okay.
But actually, the first thing I did was keep my mouth shut for a year. Because I thought, you know lots about recovery. You don't know squat about how this system works.
Right.
Keep your mouth shut and try and learn, as much as you can about kind of how does this go?
Mm-hmm.
But very rapidly, because at that same time, the system itself was changing to start understanding that alcoholism was a chronic condition.
Right.
And that's a very different kind of ball game.
Sure,
You know?
when they actually start
Well,
referring
really-
to it
yeah, well,
as
really-
a disease.
Here's what really happened. MAD put a volunteer in every courtroom.
Right.
And then everybody all of a sudden got interested.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit, we can't do that anymore. So
Right.
now we got to start actually trying to fix this.
Uh-huh.
And that led to, so I went from there running groups to Wilmer, Judicial Treatment Center.
We are familiar with Wilmer.
Helped to open that up.
Right.
And then from there became a training officer, because I figured that if I was really going to be of some use, I could train people in just sort of real basic stuff. Real basic stuff. Like when they tell you they're going to the Grove Group, ask them where the coffee pot is. And if they don't know where the coffee pot, that
Then
kind of stuff.
they're getting their signature
if
forged.
If they're telling you got 90 days, they got 90 days, ask them what color key tag they picked up. And if they look at you like you just lost your mind,
Right.
chances are real good they're lying to you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I wound up engaged in, with all that stuff. When I came and kept doing that for 3 years, but the promise I'd made to everybody was, I'm willing to do this for 3 years, but I want back to the face-to-face stuff. And that's been my story all along. I never wanted to be the guy who, tried to push the guy who pushed the guy to actually do it.
Right.
Much rather just sort of work the other way from underneath. I learned some things from a community organizer named Saul Alinsky. I was his driver back when I was in seminary. So I wound up, Judge 𝐊𝐿 was starting a drug court. And he really, and he's doing a wonderful thing now, because what he's doing is he's organizing a whole thing that says, look, when these people get arrested and come into us, regardless of what's going on, what we need to be able to remember is they have something that pushed them here. Let's find the something.
Right.
And let's help them work on the something. Otherwise, we're just spinning a door.
Yep.
And we're not going anywhere with this. So
Yeah,
let's,
a little revolving door.
So it's,
yeah.
it really is kind of next generation stuff.
Right.
The Divert Court's been around since 1999.
Okay.
It has had several. Judge 𝐊𝐿 was the first one. Then
He's now is that the same?
he's the
Crusoe
DA. Yeah, he's the DA right
Well,
now. He's
shout
still
out to him. He's the guy who got me out of jail.
He's still the same guy.
Yeah.
That is now, he's trying to work this whole system
Uh-huh.
to try and get an assessment kind of funnel going, so that people get a chance to try and change the part of their life. And that because we're human beings, and
Right.
because, like I said at the beginning, this is always about obedience to the unenforceable. That's the
Sure.
really hard part.
Yeah. Well, and then, so when you say divert court, I mean, what exactly would you say that means?
This I want loud and clear. If anybody out there, if you've got a felony yourself, you just got arrested, and you've got a penalty group 1 felony or penalty group 2, and you have no particular history of violence, okay, you might have had a little bit, but nothing real no blood spurting or so. And you can come to us. The deal is, you're going to go through a 12 to 18 month program. It's going to be intense. You're going to probably have to shift your job around some. You're going to have to go to meetings you don't want to go to. You're going to have to look at stuff you don't want to look at. And you're going to have me in your face knocking on your door at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning. So all that's going to happen. But if you successfully complete this, think boot camp is what I tell you.
Right.
If you successfully complete this, the felony goes away. It's expunged.
Yeah.
That's not deferred. That's not.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
You can legally claim it never happened.
Right.
Which is really huge. Okay.
Can you do that retroactively?
No.
No. Okay.
The thing that we've had a lot of people.
I was asking for Chad, to be honest.
No, the deal is, I mean, we had any number of people say, "Yeah, man, yeah."
If I would have known, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just part of it was he sort of got scooped up by the attorneys because they always get there first, and so there's they're like, oh yeah, okay, we got this option. Well, anybody can call up. So the telephone number is 214-653-5340. You're talking to my boss, Trina Crosby. Okay. 214-653-5340.
And
we'll go on with the commercial later.
Right. Well, I'll also put the website up in the description as well.
Thank you.
So they can reach out to you personally, right?
Fine,
Yeah.
great.
So, cool.
The thing is that can you have to have an attorney to get in.
Yeah.
We can sort of fix that other ways if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wasn't even offered any of that stuff because
Right.
my whole case was just a mess. But thank you to Mr. 𝐊𝐿𝐿 for getting me out of the situation that I was in. I will be eternally grateful. I was supposed to meet him. I have not had a chance to, but I want to stop by and meet him sometime.
You would love meeting him.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that changed him from Harleys to BMW motorcycles. That's my brag on that.
There you go.
So then what happened? My story then has just been pretty much. I retired. I enjoyed retirement, all 129 days. They invited me back, and one of my hobby horses is that probation needs to turn around and start going out and sitting at the place where your guy lives. you know, so that you know where he's living. You know what it's like there. You know what mama is like. Mama's got your cell phone.
Right.
All that stuff counts. And then if you know a little bit about recovery, there's an awful lot of good work you can start doing there.
Sure.
Because there's at least an even chance if you're
well,
able
and
to
you've
keep
got a
your
better
ego
chance
out
of
it.
understanding the person and their situation.
If you keep your ego out of it, when they finally get that gift of desperation, I'm one of the people they're likely to call.
Right.
Or mama's going to be much more likely to call, actually. And so when that happens, then now you got a shot. You know, and then it's kind of funny because you would think we're the Cadillac court. We got three kinds of inpatient. We got intensive outpatient. We got supportive outpatient. We got all this stuff, and it would be like, well, doesn't everybody know? We have a rate of which I am extremely proud. I think about 87% of the people that come in go out the other end. They're not going to all stay sober.
Right.
The primary modality used is cognitive behavioral training.
Okay.
Because a long time ago, New York Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said AA is a religion, so you can't mix state and religion.
Sure. Separation of God and state.
First I was pissed, and then I thought, no, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that obedience to the unenforced, you cannot make somebody do this.
Yeah.
When they get ready, my experience has been over and over, that when people finally get ready, then they'll do it.
Right.
And the way they'll do it is with an understanding of what they're really up against. Because what they're really up against is a chronic, progressive, fatal, if not intervened on, condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Jails, institutions, and death, man. I'm 3.
Yeah.
I'm 10 for 3 on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You and me both. Right?
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, we get that. So then the journey for me has been since then to do my best to try and underline for the person that, look, that substitution leads to something far, far greater. You're in this little circle, and you're hooked there. It's going to be over when the gorilla says it's over. If you're still alive when the gorilla says that, good. Now you got a chance to escape. The thing that is the other piece that I spend a lot of time on, that I didn't at the beginning because I was kind of blind to it, is the families.
Yeah.
I carry Al-Anon stuff with me all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I meet a mother.
Well, a lot of
I hand out
times.
2 things: my card and that introductory Al-Anon journal, so that they know, hey, and I tell them, read the thing because these are people most likely who think and act like you do. And when they do, you're gonna if it makes no sense to you, throw it away.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But if it makes sense, on the back, or I'll tell you right now if you're interested, because sometimes they just like, oh yeah, tell me. Here's your nearest Al-Anon group, and here's the stuff. And I think it makes a difference when you get that kind of personal introduction to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As opposed to peeling.
Well, and a
off.
lot of people don't realize that there is
Yeah.
is that level of treatment or support with Al-Anon, because most people think, oh well, they're the alcoholic, it's their problem,
Yeah.
they have to fix it.
Yeah.
They don't realize it's a community effort and a family effort.
My family had
Family-wide.
started going to FA, and that's how they learned a lot. Families Anonymous.
Yes.
And,
Excellent program.
Oh yeah, and what it's cool. It's cool too because the one that they went to, a famous Texas gardener on the radio started that group. And I grew up listening to that guy. And now I've got to shake hands with him and be like, dude, I listen to you every Sunday. And I hated it as a kid, but his voice is just so soothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so now they're all friends and all that stuff. But yeah, now my parents can, be of assistance to other parents that are going through the same kind of thing.
Well, that's the other deal, and that's kind of the meaning of my life. It's funny. I came here right from a guy who sponsored him for 25 years, and practicing golf in his garage with some neat deal he had set up. Boom, heart attack, he's gone. And we'll do his service a week from now, and it's just like there are so many people who owe so much, and
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that he ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll contrast that with one other story if we've got a second.
Yeah, sure.
Back when I was a chaplain at Parkland, I was the guy wearing the dog collar besides the Roman Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm.
So if the priest got overwhelmed, he would send some of them off to me. It was like,
Right,
okay,
you're the beast.
you're gonna get Catholic light, but at least you're gonna have someone say the words. Okay?
Right, sure.
So there's this guy, and I get there, and he's bright yellow. He's an alcoholic, and it's wintertime. I remember February, and the sun had just gone, was dying, and I knew, and he knew, and every person in that room knew he was never going to see another sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is his final confession. So I get up there and tell me, my son, and he starts in, and he can't do it. Because the really terrible thing about just the nature of spiritual life is that if you are filled with resentment, it is almost impossible to suddenly turn around. I mean, the justification, he started in, he said, well, there was Joe, and he said, nah, fuck that son of a bitch. He wasn't,
Right.
And so finally, we went on like this for about 10 minutes, and he finally said, Father, you might as well just go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said, God bless you.
Yeah.
And walked out. But it really underlined for me, it's funny, the Earth people always talk to us about how, you're going to die. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
And inside, we don't want to die. We really don't want to die.
Mm.
But the reality is, if you want our attention, you don't talk to us about you're going to die. We say, oh, no. That's not what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen, you're not the lucky one. What's going to happen to you is you're going to live.
Mm-hmm.
And be fucking miserable.
And zombie time, man. You're going to be a dead man walking.
Right.
You ain't going to be able to feel much. You ain't going to be able to see much. You're just going to be trying to
stay alive
Mm-hmm.
while wanting to die.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
sure.
that gets our attention as a rule. Or
Yeah.
is more likely to, I'd say.
Of course.
Because
Well, why don't I love what you're doing with the Divert Court. So why don't we give that information out again, just in case somebody's listening on the podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you or someone you love has got a penalty group 1 felony arrest, that's state jail level only. Okay, it's got to be under 1 gram. The most typical scenario is somebody gave you a little Coke to help you drive better on
Right.
the way home, and you took it, and you didn't drive. You drove drunk. You were awake while you did it, but you still
Right.
drove drunk. The cops
Sure.
pulled up. The lights come on, and you forget to throw the baggie away. That's
Right.
the single most common scenario.
Sure.
The whatever it is, though, however you got there, you now have an arrest for penalty group. So for cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin,
Right.
or the number 2 drugs, slightly greater amounts.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's your story,
Mm-hmm.
then and you really want to stop,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's the other thing. We aren't if you're not ready, you're going to really hate our program.
Sure.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but if you're ready, or
Mm-hmm.
you're close to ready, or your mama and you think he might be ready, come on down.
Okay.
And the phone number again is 214-653-5340, 214-653-5340. And I'm told that they'll put the website up too, so you get a chance to look it over.
We will, for sure.
Let me just give some shout outs.
Sure, of course.
Judge Hector Garza is our current presiding judge over Divert Court.
Right.
And he and Judge Stephen Autry, both of them, he's the chief
Right. Everybody gets the shout out air horn.
magistrate,
Right.
magistrate court. And both of them, they don't talk about this at all, but they both do their work for free.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Julie Turnbull is our district attorney there. And a guy named Hank Juden, 214
Every time.
214 not guilty is how you get a hold of him.
Okay.
But they are members of a team that work very hard to make things happen. We've got 3 case managers. Right now, LaToya Mormon, Destiny,
Mm-hmm.
and Zitali Gutierrez.
At some point,
She only got half. I mean,
yeah.
what?
At some point, you're gonna get choked, Chad.
And good counselors as well.
All right. Well, I mean, it sounds like they have, something in place that is a good thing in place of the alternate.
And
You
trying
know,
to
which is
actually
always-
combat this thing instead of just
Yeah, there is. The first time I went to a Texas Association of Specialty Courts, we could have easily fit around this table.
All right.
Okay. The last time I went, which was 3 years ago, it was in a ballroom in a Fort Worth hotel. There was, I'm told, 1,600 people there.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
So yeah, it's blowing. I mean,
that's good.
It makes sense.
Right.
You know, the taxpayer pays $12 a day for us. Pays about $2 a day now, I think, for regular probation.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot more money, and you get a lot more bang for your buck.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
I've never had any taxpayer say, "Oh no, give me the
Give me a
the
refund.
cheap one."
Yeah.
Where,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and also sharing about what y'all are doing in the court system. That's always a good thing to have that asset in your city.
Yeah.
And then, as always, Chadwick,
Yeah, man.
pleasure. Thanks for coming out. I'm excited. We actually have somebody from an organization called Grace to Change, Jennifer. And
Yeah.
you are actually very familiar with Grace to Change.
I am.
Excited to have them on next week. So be sure and tune in.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, do that.
Yeah, man.
That might be
Hey,
good.
man. Tune in, brother.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Be sure and subscribe. And then remember, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.